Ashley, thank you so much for joining me on the podcast today. I am really excited for this conversation because you're helping corporations understand more about how we can manage burnout better. And I think that that's such an important conversation for women, for moms, as entrepreneurs. So, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here.
Yeah, well, let's just dive in and talk about Simply Five and your role and how your journey as a mom in corporate America helped you in your position now.
Yes, absolutely. Being a mom is really what has shaped everything since becoming a mom. Before then, I actually worked at Dell. I was in diversity and inclusion. It was the first job that I had taken after graduating college. It's been around for a long time. It has that deeply ingrained way of doing things, slow moving machine, but a very effective machine,
Mhm.
finely tuned after all those years. And I knew that after becoming a mom, it's not what I wanted to go back to. I knew it wasn't going to allow me what I needed to be able to be a mom first and foremost and have a job that is in support of that. And
Mhm.
so I wanted something with more flexibility. And actually, I grew up in the world of Simplify and Five Dynamics because my own mom is the CEO.
Uh-huh.
And so I was fortunate that I had that option to be able to provide me with the flexibility so that I could be with my son and be a mom and work this job. And so I now am VP of Marketing and Communications. And so, in addition to the message of Simplify and 5D and all that we do, I have learned over these years that I have my own message that I want to spread throughout corporate America. And this platform and this position and the opportunities that come with it have enabled me to do that. And it's fortunate as well that the mission of the company and what we do aligns with that, and it's all about just freeing people of whatever binds them,
Mhm.
whether that's their own blind spots and just things that they might not really like understand how to lean into in themselves, which is what the Five Dynamics methodology helps unlock and unleash that potential. And for me, it's really breaking down these corporate walls that have far too long been a barrier for, like you said, women, moms, and just
Mhm.
people in general.
I think that this is so important for helping moms and women feel like they have imposter syndrome sometimes around corporate America, which I don't think that they should have because it wasn't a space, an arena that was created for moms and women in the first place. So
Absolutely.
I love that something like this exists to help us to begin to find what we need and help shift the conversation from something's wrong with us to a process that can be better. So, can you help us understand more of like Simplify's mission and maybe some of the core aspects of the four principles or five principles, things like that to help us understand better?
Sure thing. So it's Simplify is the platform, and it's
Mhm.
powered by the Five Dynamics methodology. And that starts out as a quick 3-minute assessment. And in that time, you get this result, your profile that
Mhm.
explains to you all about your natural predispositions and where your energy naturally wants to go, what you see, how you communicate, how you go through processes. And that's in the four measurable energies, which is explore, excite, examine, and execute.
Mm.
And so those also align naturally with the project completion cycle. There's an idea, then people need to rally around that idea. There needs to be a well formulated plan around that idea, and then you make that idea happen. And
Mhm.
so it's the project completion cycle aligned with the four energies that we measure. And then the fifth dynamic is evaluate, where you're evaluating throughout that whole process. And
Mhm.
so we all have a certain amount of energy in those four measurable energies. And it's not based on our personality, it's based on our neural pathways and how we have through nature and nurture come to make sense of the world around us. And
Hmm.
so explore, like I said, people who love to live in like the world of ideas and brainstorming and visionaries coming up with things that people never thought of and seeing ways that things are connected that other people aren't able to see. And then excite, they care about relationships and people. And is everybody on board? Are we communicating this clearly? They're really good at keeping up team morale. Examine, those are people who data, figures, details. They will see everything. They will see what has been missed. They want to make sure that you're moving forward carefully and cautiously to avoid that risk. And execute are people who like to get it done and they're going to drive things across the finish line. And because we all have a certain makeup across those four energies, we all have a diverse array of thought when we come together as teams. So it not only helps you understand yourself better, it helps you understand the people around you, whether that's your team at work, your spouse, your friends, your family. It's all about understanding processes and how each person is making sense of things in their own unique way, and how can you work together more effectively for better results, again, whether that's at work or in personal relationships or how you study in school.
I love that. I mean, I'm such an advocate for tools that can help us better understand ourselves and then how we relate to those around us to accomplish all the things that we're trying to accomplish, right? That's that's awesome. And so is this a free tool that anybody can access, or because I'd be happy to share it.
Yeah, so we're currently working on things
Okay.
right now to where
Okay.
there will be a free version available
Uh-huh.
to people, and then they can pay for the full access.
Mhm.
That's soon to be released, not
Okay.
currently available. In current state, it's most of the time managers at work will buy it for their teams, or we do have a simplify relationships version, which is free, but it doesn't have all of like the teaming capabilities that the Simplify platform has. But
Okay.
big things are coming over the next couple.
Okay. All right. We'll leave links in the show notes, so listeners can definitely check it out and learn more. But I would love to hear your perspective on, you know, the burnout that happens by trying to keep going at as things are, in many corporate environments. And so what are some of your opinions on like what's leading to the burnout, especially in the workplace environment right now?
So actually something that you said earlier, I think is a huge piece of it. And you said that it was never built for women and moms in the first place. And I think this system especially wasn't built for women and moms, but it was not built for people and around people. This system that we operate under, it was for profit, for productivity,
Mhm.
for squeezing the most out of people that it possibly could.
Mhm.
And it has drained us over generations of trying to fit ourselves into this box. It just doesn't work. It was not designed around people being able to live a full, meaningful life, to have more control over their time and their energy, to leave room for inspiration and following their passions and sharing their natural gifts with the world. We've just been hammered into these corporate fitting holes.
Mhm.
And I think we have been basically brainwashed over the last few generations, because how do you get people to give so much of themselves to a system like that?
Mhm.
Well, you convince them that their value and their worth as a human is inextricably tied to that job, and what their title is, how much money they make, how productive of a member of society are they. And so I think it's the entire system is the problem when they're so quick to blame the individual. It's, oh, well, you just need to meditate or do some yoga or go on a walk or listen to some calming music. Like, you're the problem. It's not the system. You're the problem that you don't have these strategies in place that you can handle it. But the system is the problem. It was not built for us. And we are not, we need to challenge and push that back against those beliefs that our job is our value, it's who we are, that's what makes us a productive member of society. But I think that's a skewed definition. I think a more productive member of society is a person who is just full of that inner peace and light because they get to control their day, and they go to the grocery store at 5, 6 o'clock and they're smiling at people and they're sending out that good energy into the world, versus the person who absolutely just was grueling away all day at work, gave all of themselves to it for whatever the outcome is. Most of it may end up in the landfill. Most of it's not like something that society and people even need. So that's another thing we need to examine is, okay, so you have a lot of output and a lot of productivity, but is it the right kind? And so they go to the grocery store at the end of the day and they're drained and they're irritable and they're frustrated, and that's what they're sending out into the world. So I think it is these long held beliefs about what we're supposed to be, what we're supposed to give, what the output and what the outcome is of that. And it's really, we need to challenge these generations of gaslighting and brainwashing to understand, like, we're so much more than that. And there's a different way to do this where we can still have good output, we can be productive, but it does not need to be in the way that it is, because it is not sustainable. People cannot keep going like this.
Preach it, sister. It's like, I just, listeners right now, I don't know, I hope it is not lost on them, like how revolutionary everything you just said is, honestly. I mean, it is, I don't know if it was the pandemic that woke people up as to like, I just can't do this anymore. There's more to life. Um, and I think that there is this, like, the system is kind of cracking when people do get the titles and the jobs that they think will give them the self-worth and the fulfillment and the satisfaction, and it doesn't. And they're like, forget it. What have I been giving all of this for? And that's really part of my own entrepreneurial journey. Like, waiting around for somebody to give you a sense of approval and opportunity. And, I think we're all just so tired of waiting for that. And I know so many women listening to this podcast have been through that and can definitely, your message resonates with them. But what do you think for business leaders and those who are creating businesses? What are some of our biggest misconceptions about those who work with us in creating our team so we can avoid creating that trap?
I think a lot of it is looking at those long held beliefs of this is how it's supposed to run, and you're supposed to be in front of your computer from 8 to 5, and you're supposed to be doing this, and realizing that if you actually if you understand how the person works, how your team works, then you can give them more freedom and flexibility to lean into that. Like, so for example, I'm high in explore, and so I need that time in that space to ponder, to brainstorm, to let inspiration strike. And then I can come back and produce something that's really good. Versus if I was told, just sit here, do this, stare at the screen, I need this, it's not going to be great. I'm going to be drained. I might get it done, but it's not going to be my best work. And so the leaders in creating their teams, I think, one, just need to challenge these outdated beliefs of what it's supposed to look like. And then two, understand that there is already room for providing some more of that freedom and flexibility by letting people lean into their natural gifts.
Yeah, and I think as moms and women and a younger generation are just really positioned to start this conversation around, like, we have to, the price of things, we can no longer afford to just be at stay-at-home parents. Like, we have to work, and we're just like, this environment is not working for us. And so I would love to hear your thoughts too. You mentioned it a little bit earlier, how, like, oh, you just, this focus on the person is the problem. Like, you just need to meditate more. You just need to go take a break. Like, how are those kind of band-aid solutions not helping us and actually hurting the actual working environment?
Well, one, because they're not working, that it's not replenishing people the way that it's intended to do so, but also because then it makes the individual feel like something is wrong with them. They're not cut out for this. They can't cut it. Again, instead of seeing like it is not on the person, it is not that you are not built for this system. This system was not built for you. So those band-aid approaches are really just doing more harm than good because people are just scraping by. You have a few hours at the end of the day, a couple of days here on the weekend, maybe some vacation time, and all of that is spent just trying to recover instead of really replenish and fill up your cup. And so that energy is just, it's drained over and over again so quickly. And then again, it's that mental misconception of, oh, I didn't do it right, or something's wrong with me. But it's not.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. And I think a lot of us, we're so quick to beat ourselves up and think that we're the problem in all of this. And so I love that you're giving us permission to go, okay, let's find a better process. So when business leaders are finding that, okay, whatever process we have might need some refinement, I think, just like I mentioned, as parents, we're uniquely qualified to begin to give some insight into how the process needs to change. So, can you talk a bit about what you think needs to change, and what are some changes that we can make to make better working environment?
Yes, definitely. So I think one, they first need to be willing to trial and error it, try different things and figure out what works best, because it's also going to be different for every individual, every team. It's not a cookie cutter, one size fits all approach.
Right.
And so they need to be willing to start making some changes. And like I was saying earlier, realizing that what they think leads to productivity might not necessarily be the actual way to get there. I think there's this fear that if it's not super structured, if there's not a bunch of oversight, then there's going to be no work, there's going to be no productivity. That's just all going to fall to the wayside. And I think realizing that actually sometimes less work will lead to greater outcomes is going to be a really important shift. Because as I was saying earlier, with the example of myself, you can try to pull work for me all day long, but if you want good work, then you need to give me that space and that freedom. And eventually that inspiration will strike and I will get it done. Give me a framework, give me the parameters. What do you need done and when do you need it done by? And then let me decide how I'm going to go about getting it done. And I will get it done. But I need to have space for my life and the things that I care about most. I need to have space in that first, and the work will be part of that. And it's for too long, it's been flip-flopped of it has to be work, 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 work first, and shove a little bit of room for who you are as a person in there when you can. And if you just invert that and you allow space for you as a person and your full messy life leading that, then there's more room for better work because you're going to be more energized. You may be more inspired. And you can just see that when you flip it, I think the results actually would be far better than anything that we've seen previously.
Yeah, and I think too, like just having everybody do an assessment is powerful in that you're saying, look, I'm a unique individual with different levels of energy than maybe you have. And then I'm sure you all have a framework that kind of talks about how a person with certain energy level or passions might work better in different situations. So not only having that assessment, but a sense of a framework, because like you said, I think that that's what businesses are like, what I'm just supposed to throw you to the wind and like expect things to get done. They always want to have those frameworks. And so I think that that's really helpful. And just identifying that we're all individuals with different levels of energy around our creativity and how we get things done
Mm-hmm.
is really powerful. I like the word human-centered strategies that succeed in improving our work-life balance. What are some of the things that you've seen that have helped?
I think a big one is what you were just talking about is being able to see each person for who they are and what they uniquely bring. And that's what the 5D assessment is all about. And
Mhm.
it has also all of that information about like, so I know what it's telling me about me. I can then also go and put in Angela, and I can see how we can work together, how we can communicate, how I can lead, what she needs from me. And that's an important piece of it, is seeing you as you and seeing you as different from me, and what works for you versus what works for me, and giving you the room that you need.
Mhm.
And so just first and foremost, seeing you as a human. And again, like, you're a mother, and knowing that that's a huge piece of who you are, and what your time needs to be dedicated towards, and how we can fit work around that, and not leaving space for like the shame and the guilt that comes from it, of trying to have both things and manage it all. And I think this longstanding definition of having it all doesn't need to be giving all of yourself to everything, because it's simply not possible. But we can have it all if it means we don't have to do it all. I can still be successful as VP of marketing and communications without giving all of myself to this role. This role is a part of who I am. It's not all of who I am. And so just that human centered model with work being built around it. Also, at our company, we have unlimited vacation days. Like, you just take off when you need to. And there, again, no stress, no pressure. It's like, we've got you, it's okay. And that just also adds an incredible weight lifted off the shoulders. So yeah, just human first.
Yeah. No, I love that. I think when I worked in a corporate environment, the one thing I dreaded the most was asking for days off. It's like it was like I was having to go visit Darth Vader. I wasn't sure if I was gonna get the chokehold or like
Yeah.
so I love that. And I think that that is just like such a relief, like you said, just such a weight lifted that I just felt like there was no respect that I was a person who had a family and a life. And at times I was a military spouse who had all of these responsibilities if my husband was deployed or whatnot. And so that was never really a factor. And to be seen as a human who's also employed at a certain business and, treated like an adult, honestly. It's like, you so often feel in the corporate environment like you're a child in a parental kind of relationship. And it's like, wait a minute,
Yeah.
we have a mortgage and a car payment. you know? I think that that is it. And it seems like such a simple mindset shift, but it hasn't been for decades and decades. And so I think it's so exciting that we're just even now having conversations like this that just previously didn't exist. There are so many ways that technology is kind of eroding that work-life balance, like from texts and emails to like monitoring what we're doing online and all of these other things. Are there ways in which businesses can use technology to actually support this kind of human first model and bring more balance?
Technology is also a complicated one, because
Yeah,
it's one of those things that has the capacity for good and evil. It depends
right.
on who wields it and what they do with it. But I think, one, using technology to fully embrace remote work is
Mm.
just a no-brainer at this point. It's a must. These forced return to office policies, I think there's a lot more behind the scenes than that's just what they think is productivity and what's going to get the most out of their employees.
Mhm.
I think that's the story they want to tell, and there's some things that aren't being told as part of that.
Mhm.
But just embracing remote work, like, we can still have a fully meaningful conversation via Zoom. There is, of course, elements to in-person things, and do what you can to recreate that or be together when you need to. But I think at this point, remote work is a must. Um, AI can be a tricky one, because I think it's so odd that we have now, like, instead of humans modulating technology, in a lot of ways, technology is modulating humans. And I think it's a line that we need to walk carefully as we continue to use it. And actually, that's another big thing that in the next few months, Simplify is working on. We'll have some big announcements in the next few months. And it's putting humans back in the center of modern day technology, which I think is really important. And I think will help free up the modern worker in a lot of ways. Um, so yeah, just figuring out how to embrace technology. My mom actually, so she has been the CEO of multiple companies, and since the 90s, before Zoom was around, before quickly texting was a commonplace thing, she has been running fully remote companies for over 2 decades. And so there's a lot of evidence to how successful embracing technology and the power of being able to work from anywhere and getting that input from anyone around the world holds.
I love that. Even before the pandemic, I had worked remotely for years, actually, probably close to a decade, because as a military spouse or whatnot, that's what worked. You know, like if you wanted to work with me, that's how it had to be. And so everybody was just losing their mind at the beginning of the pandemic, thinking like, how is this even possible? How are we going to do this? Everything's going to collapse. And anything new is so tough, but you learn to adapt. And now it's commonplace. And honestly, workers don't want to return for the most part to the office. I just really love the shift to looking at those that we work with as humans, just not producers of things.
Mm.
And as moms who are raising humans, we just need so much space and grace, but we have so many talents and so many things that we can share with the workforce or in our business that I just love that you're having this conversation. Where do you recommend that businesses begin if they're looking to start this, to reconsider how they structure their business and with their workers?
Yeah, it's a big one. It's a lofty one because you kind of have this like business and corporate America as an entity,
Mhm.
and the entire thing needs to just be turned on its head. But to do that, you have to break it apart into all of its separate components, like each company within that, each leader within that, all the managers. And so I think the first thing before the entire system can be altered is every person needs to look inside themselves and see what they're holding on to that they should let go of. As we were talking about throughout all of this, those outdated beliefs of productivity, your job being like you're tied to your worth, and really being able to internalize like you are so much more than that. You are a human. You get to be a human first, shamelessly. You get to be who you are first.
Unapologetically.
Unapologetically, yes.
Yeah.
And then it all flows outward from there. Everything has to start with the individual and internally, and then start looking at the processes and what can be changed. And I think it'll all flow and all the puzzle pieces can be put together. And when we can actually really start breaking apart, okay, is 8 to 5, 5 day work week the best? Does that make the most sense? Or can we challenge that? But you can't really start breaking apart those things until all of the people on board have that same shared thread and that common vision and that understanding that it's high time for things to change.
Right. Like a beginner's mindset, a learner's mindset.
Mhm.
Because I know a lot of people are like, oh, but I just like to be able to stroll into somebody's office and interrupt what they're doing and have a conversation about whatever it is that is on my mind at the moment. So, learning to communicate, I mean, in all of the years that I've worked remotely, learning to communicate differently is probably, I think, at the forefront of making it work.
Mhm.
That is really tough for a lot of people.
Yeah, yes. And having the understanding, like the awareness of the 5D methodology can help you navigate that. Like
Mhm.
this high person who's high in examine, who is heads down in this deep data task, do not go and interrupt
Right.
them. But that person who is high in excite and wants to talk about those ideas, like, yeah, you can reach out to them. That they've set their doors open. You can pick up the phone, you can call them. And so it helps you better navigate. It's not like you're going to have to make changes. Everybody's going to have to make changes and make those alterations of how they communicate. But it's also letting you know, like, where are you free to lean in, and where are those like quote unquote safe spaces for you to be able to do that. So
I love that. That's great. It's a lot of hard work, but I think it is so worth it. And I'm excited that my daughters get to start working in a workforce in the future that is going to consider them more as a human and in whatever they decide to do. And so I love that. I think it's an exciting time and an exciting conversation to have. If you wanted to leave listeners with a takeaway or a few takeaways, what would that be?
I think it would be to realize that you hold more power than the system wants you to believe.
Mm.
And like I was saying earlier, shamelessly embrace who you are first and foremost, and know where your internal worth comes from, and that it's not your job, and that the system was not built for you, and we're going to work together to build a system that is.
I love that. I created a post about that not too long ago, and there was some crickets around it. And I think that we're still grasping with that concept because for so long, from well-intentioned bosses and parents, our education and our title and what we did is so much a part of our identity and our sense of self-worth. And so moving away from that is really hard, but we're going to have more fulfillment. We're going to be happier. We're going to be ultimately more productive. And I think businesses are going to be more profitable and responsible because of it. So I
Absolutely.
love it. Thank you so much, Ashley. And where can listeners learn more, connect with you, connect more with the content?
Yes, so you could go to simplify.com, SIMPLI 5, to learn more about the company. You can follow me on LinkedIn, Ashley Gordon. Uh, like I said, lots of exciting stuff coming over the next few months. So,
Yeah, I'm excited. I can't wait to learn more. And I love your perspective on the fact that there is more technology in the workplace, but that can actually help us emphasize the human side more. So I love that
yes,
perspective.
yes, absolutely. We just have to wield it well, but
I know, right? We have to
yeah.
be responsible in how we use it, which whole other can of worms. But thank you so much for the enlightening conversation and perspectives.
Thank you.